There was a horror. The horror was that a video did not record. This video was monetary policy, holding fingers that supply side policy records. Now, let me get my binoculars and let's have a look here. Well, supply side policy. First thing we must do is a definition of supply side policy. Then we must look at the supply side policy measures. So possible supply side policy measures can include education and training, labor market reforms, a lower direct tax, some deregulation, improving incentives to work and invest, and privatization. Binoculars down. Effects of supply-side policy measures on government microeconomic aims. This is one for a telescope. How supply-side policy measurements may enable the government to achieve its macroeconomic aims. Forget the P. The P just snuck in there. Watch! Watch! You have seen this before. Let's watch it again. Oh, well, one of our macroeconomic aims is full employment. Every government aims for full employment. They'll consider the labor force. They will look at the economic active and the economically inactive, and so on and so on and so forth. If you want to learn more about this, then jump to the video on role of government. When I want a chocolate, I want a chocolate. This is a Snicker. Or it was a Snicker, now it is no longer a Snicker, it is a Snicker wrapper. However, I would like the next time that I feel like a chocolate munchy, crunchy enjoyment for it to be similar in price. I don't want to go to the shop and be faced with the horror of having to pay 3 times as much for my Snicker. Once I grew upwards, and now I grow outwards. But growth is good. For the economy, growth is good. If we are growing, we are expanding our over time, in the long run, our production possibilities. Remember the PPC. Who can forget the PPC? Don't forget the PPC. If you want to remember the PPC, then go right to the beginning. 1.4, the production possibility curve. Let me double check 1.4, 1.4, 1.4, 1.4, 1.4. Now, if you don't remember 1.4, the definition of the PPC, the points under, on, and beyond the PPC, movements along the PPC, and shifts in the PPC, then you should go back. Because supply side is all about a shift in our PPC. Don't mention PPC, because the PPC will find you. As you can see, we have a traditional PPC where we have a capital goods on the y-axis and consumer goods on the x-axis. It shows that I could take a combination of capital goods and consumer goods. However, should I educate my people? Let's have a little look. What can I do? We could educate and train our people, and thus they become more productive, and the PPC would shift outwards. We could reform the labor market. Lots and lots of rules slow down the economy. Let's get rid of these rules, the duplicates, the triplicates, the red tapes, and our economy would shift outwards. We could lower the direct tax. Wow, lower my tax, I will work longer. I work longer anyways. Deregulation, get rid of the red tape. Improve incentives to work. Improve incentives to work. Invest. Investing especially in capital, machinery and infrastructure. And privatization. Yes, sometimes the private people do a better job than the state-owned enterprises because of the profit motive. Well, if we don't know this by now, we must go and learn, because economic growth can be measured by aggregate demand and aggregate supply. It's actually where they intersect. Good news is that according to this, where is it? I lost it. Terrible. Let me find it. It is a note. It's an obvious note. 4.3.9, note aggregate demand and aggregate supply are not required when looking at the effect of fiscal policy. But you're going to realize it's quite useful. Textbooks and notes and PowerPoints and videos are full of aggregate demand and aggregate supply, and where they cross, they show us the output of the economy. Finally, we meet our goal. Supply side policies. Wow, I'm not sure of the green. Hands up if you like the green. Higher. Oh, okay. All right, I can palette the green. All right, so supply side policies, what are they? Well, we saw on the PPC the shift outward could be a result of higher productivity of the nation, which could be achieved by investing in schools and universities and better of roads, and our economy would be able to supply the goods and services needed. So these are policies to increase aggregate supply. So in other words, it's the quality and the quantity of goods and services produced by an economy. These policies can include, yes, education and training, which would lead to labor productivity rising. These policies could include, that's true, yes, decreasing our direct tax rate. Yes, less income tax. Less corporate tax. Yes, thank you for saying that at the back. It could include privatization. Because the profit motive can lead to efficiency. This is why I worked at a private school, so that I may be efficient. There may be conflict between government aims. One of them is unemployment and inflation. Our expansionary fiscal and monetary policies, well, let's have a little look. Well, government expenditure, if it is increased, ceteris paribus, all other things being equal, would have a positive effect on the aggregate demand and will increase jobs. So more jobs, more income. More income, more demand, more aggregate demand. But the prices will go up, and this could lead to inflation. or more income, more demand, more of production, and we could get economic growth. But that could lead to inflation. In terms of balance of payments and economic growth, a deflationary fiscal and monetary policy that would lead to, well, possibilities they could raise the income tax. And then the imports go down, so the balance of payments improve, but also the income goes down. But the demand for domestic products goes up, and the competition goes up, but perhaps the prices go up. But perhaps not. Perhaps the prices go down and we get a deflation and the economy shrinks. If the income goes down, the demand of domestic goods, it might go down because possibly we are making our inputs, so your inputs are coming in from abroad. Yeah, so the cost of our local production goes up, and because the cost of producing goes up, the supply curve would shift inwards, and there would be less of production and economic decline. Well, lots of conflicts there. So, if aims are in conflict, the government will always have to make a choice to solve the problems they face. Which problem is more important to solve? Do we solve inflation or do we solve unemployment? Huh. Watch. Watch carefully. So let's watch this very carefully. So what is happening here? Well, the supply side policies. The supply side policies, well, every government will want to increase their aggregate demand and their aggregate supply without inflation. Their aims may be to remove unemployment. I think my left eye is stronger than my right. To achieve economic growth, but it may take some time for the policies to be in effect. Actually, is what they call time lag. You can imagine if I must build a school or a university, it may cost me 2 years to build, and then another 3 or 4 years to get that year group through the university, those extra people through the university, or those extra people through the middle school, the primary school, and we have to wait a little bit. But when they are more educated, they are more skilled, they become more productive, they will take the economy more to the tertiary sector where there is more value to be added, and in fact, we move our supply outwards. Now, we're not going to dwell on this in IGCSE, but if I become more productive, I cost less. And if I cost less, then inflation will drop in the longer run. Hmm. Watch. Watch. Watch carefully, because supply side policies may not always be successful. For example, the subjects they teach me in education may not be in demand. Strangely enough, some economies have woken up to the fact that they're not training enough electricians, they're not training enough plumbers, they're not training enough mechanics. Yeah, I'm a teacher. I can't fix a car. I know nothing of plumbing. I am shocking as being an electrician. One could argue there are not enough teachers. One could argue there are too many teachers. But I can't predict the future. Maybe I train somebody to become a electrician and we have a robot electrician. Tricky, because I am investing in education, but I don't know what the future needs. I know it needs education, but I don't know what education. And then privatization. If not properly managed, we get exploitation of the consumer. I feel a little exploited by the size of my electricity bill. Some poor old people, I think it was last year, in the UK, got a horrific gas bill from a private company, and all they wanted to do was keep warm and cook on gas.